Hi, it's Stacy from Families with Grace, and it is time for Saturday afternoon story time with Families with Grace. Every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern, we have a new faith-based story that is published on the Facebook page for Families with Grace that you can check out. It stays on the Facebook page, so you can always go back and watch it again. There are quite a few of them on there now, so you can take a look at them. They're faith-based, they're designed for children, but they're great even if you're a little bit older than a child as well, because I actually quite enjoy them too. So there you go. We are going to take a break in the months of June and July from doing story time, and then we'll see how things are going in August and probably come back. But I want to take a little bit of a break to enjoy some time over the summer with my family. I'll still be writing and blogging, but the story times on Saturdays are going to just take a pause. So just to let you know, this is actually our last one for a couple of months, so it better be good, right? Okay, we are going through right now the Jesus Storybook Bible, which is an awesome Bible for kiddos, especially those who are preschool age or early elementary age. Okay, so we have been talking about the Israelites, God's chosen people back in the Old Testament, like a long, long time ago. And first, they have escaped from a really bad king, the Pharaoh. They got away from him. And if we remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how God parted a sea so that his people could just cross through on dry land safely. So since then, they've been wandering around in the desert. They've continued to be led by Moses, who we had talked about as well. They were given some rules and things to live by, but then now Moses has gotten older and he actually died. So they have a new leader named Joshua, and that's who we're going to learn about today. All right, today's story is called The Warrior Leader. God gave his people a new leader. His name was Joshua, which means the Lord saves. Joshua was going to lead God's people into the special land God had promised to give them. By this time, God's people had been wandering around in that hot, hot desert for 40 years. And that is a really long time to be doing anything, especially wandering around in a hot, hot desert. They were probably tired and hot and miserable. So you can imagine how sick they were of sand and anything yellow, and tents and walking and being hot, and how happy they were to reach the edge of the desert and to see their beautiful new home right there in front of them, all cool and green and lovely. There was only one problem: Jericho. Jericho was a city, but it wasn't just any old city. It was a fortress, and it stopped anyone from getting into the land. The people looked at Jericho, at the big, giant, scary walls around it, and at the tall, towering ramparts, at the heavy iron gates bolted shut, and at each other. They're probably standing here thinking, okay, there is no way we are going to make it through Jericho. That's what I would be thinking. What would they do? No one knew. But God knew. He's always good about that. He always has a plan. And God told Joshua what to do. But Joshua must have looked surprised, because it was a very odd battle plan indeed, as we will soon find out. Then God made his people a promise. I will always be with you, and I will never, ever leave you. If you do what I say, your lives in the new land will be happy, and everything will go well. So Joshua gathered his army together. They had their swords and spears and shields. They were ready to fight. But the plan was not about fighting. It was about trusting and doing what God said. Joshua's army went marching, marching, marching around the city, day after day after day. They're too scared to fight, the people in Jericho said, which I think must have been kind of a crazy sight to the people in Jericho, standing up there on the wall ready to fight and defend their city, and there's just this group of people marching around their town every day. Not quite what you would expect, right? So it was, oops, wait, I missed a page. because we missed the best part, actually. We're getting to the promised land before we should. Hold on just a minute. Let me see if I can go back. There we go. But they were wrong. God's people were not scared. They were waiting for God to tell them what to do next. On the seventh day, God told his people to march around the city not 1 time, but 7 times. Then God told everyone to make as much noise as they could. Has anyone ever told you to make as much noise as you possibly can? Well, imagine that noise and add 39,999 other people making that noise too. And you get the idea. Ears splitting. It would be very, 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 very loud. And as it turned out, stone splitting too. Because the huge, strong walls of Jericho just crumbled to the ground as if they were sand. Jericho vanished in a great cloud of dust. So it was that God's people entered their new home, and they did not have to fight to get in. They only had to walk. Joshua said, "God has brought you safely here. Now, will you do what he says?" Everyone said, "We promise." "Only God can make your heart happy," Joshua said. "So don't pray to other pretend gods." "No," they said, "never." I'm afraid, well, they didn't keep their promise. They didn't do what God said, and many years later, just as God warned them, things would go badly for God's people. They would lose their home, enemies would capture them and take them off as slaves, and God's people would be scattered into many different lands. But God's plan, his ultimate plan, was still working. One day, he would give his people another leader and another home. But this home, no one could ever take from them. And so when he's talking about another leader, when we're talking about that in the story, that means Jesus. And the other home that they're talking about is heaven, which no one can take. So that's very cool. And that is the end of Joshua and Jericho. Also, as I mentioned, from the Jesus Storybook Bible, which we love. All right, thank you so much for joining us here at Families with Grace for Saturday afternoon story time. We will be back for another story time in August. Take a look, keep checking the Families with Grace Facebook page. There will continue to be lots and lots of posts and links to the blog. There's lots of good information that you can find that's both practical and spiritual. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.